Hello everyone and welcome to the GPMHSC and InsideOut webinar on the changes to the eating disorder plan template.
Hi everybody, I'm Karen Spielman. I'm a GP in Sydney. I've been around for about 25 years and in my capacity here as GP advisor for the InsideOut Institute.
And for those who don't know me, my name is Alex. I am the Administration and Project Support Officer at the GPMHSC. You can find my details on this slide and again at the end of the webinar if you have any questions about anything that you see today. For those who don't know, the GPMHSC is a multidisciplinary body that is part of the Better Access Initiative. We write the mental health standards for general practice, we accredit level 1 and level 2 mental health training, and we create resources to support GPs in providing the best mental health care for their patients.
And the InsideOut Institute, which if you haven't heard of is at Sydney University, is an Australian national body for research and clinical excellence in eating disorders. It's also the lead organisation in the new Australian Eating Disorders Research and Translation Centre, which is a really large national and international consortium. And it's targeted towards co-designed research that improves health, social and emotional well-being of Australians with eating disorders and focusing on the translation of evidence into practice, which is, as you know, really important for us GPs.
Awesome. Thanks, Karen. So let's get into the webinar. We're going to try and make it quite quick for everyone because we know that you're all busy. So discussing the changes that have been made to the eating disorder plan template. All right, Karen, after you.
Okay, so there's been a few changes to the template to try and make it fit in better with our natural workflow. So you'll find the familiar parts of the plans similar to our mental health treatment plans, but as you know, more comprehensive, including both physical and mental health issues. So the referral information is at the beginning of the plan so that you don't need to print it out and add it into a separate template. And it's also got links down the side for treatment provider databases, which is cool. So hopefully you'll find it much easier to use. The formatting and the wording has changed a little bit so that it reflects our workflow properly and fits in with the MBS criteria. And it's each best practice and medical director and a PDF version so that you can choose, depending on how you use your software, that it fits in nicely with that. We've also run the plans by our lived experience consumer and carer advocates, and so we have removed the meet criteria wording and changed that to say established access to the eating disorder plan. And remember, the plan's really important in order to allow our allied health collaborators to access Medicare rebates for our patients. So they can't bill without the properly completed template.
So some of the changes we're discussing on this slide are in relation to gender identity and family and support persons. Firstly, gender identity, as we all know, is an extremely important part of who a person is, and we want to make sure that we're being supportive and inclusive to all patients. We've added the options non-binary/gender fluid and different identity, and also current identity if different. We've added a space to write as identified in software. The reasons for these additions is because a person's identity in their in Medicare or in the practice software from the first time that they saw a GP may have changed. However, we need to note what Medicare currently lists their identity as for software purposes. In regards to family and support persons and carers, as you all know, the role of a carer is so important and it can often be isolating and lonely. So we've included some links there that carers can check out from the National Eating Disorders Collaboration, Butterfly, and of course InsideOut, because we want to make sure that carers can access the help that they need. We've also added in questions to clarify who the support person is, what their details are, their relationship to the patient. Has the patient given consent for us to be able to contact the support person? And there's also been added space to write any information that the patient does not want the support person told. And all of this information just helps us understand what the patient's support system is like.
The next section that you might see a little bit different to previously is the mental state exam. And just remember, this is a really important requirement of the plan, but to make it your own, we all know how to do a mental state exam, but it can be more or less helpful at different points in our clinical lives. So we've just used the Royal Children's Hospital mental state exam, and we've linked there. And remember, it's just a guideline, and it's to be free flow, free text entry, depending on what's helpful for you in this situation. Just remember that your patient might read this report, and I know we're all very sensitive to that, but just consider that when you later on we'll talk a little bit more about how to offer a copy of the plan to our patients, and just while you're writing it, remember that may be something that they might need some help and support in explaining what terminology we've used. The other section that's a little bit different is the risk assessment section. And again, we've just given you some ideas just to make it a little bit easier and to prompt discussion, but in no way, telling you what to do. These are just some options for how to perform a risk assessment and the safety planning and relapse prevention stuff. So hopefully that'll make it a little bit easier to complete the plan. Thanks, Alex.
Awesome. Okay, so up next, we've got the changes that we've made to the medical review section. In this section, we've slightly adjusted the flow of the questions to suit the flow of a physical examination. Again, we've updated it so that it will autofill from your practice software. We've added the wording as indicated so that you have the option to tick what you've completed. As Karen said previously, this is a guideline of what might be useful. You absolutely do not have to use everything that's there, only using what's useful for you and your patient at the time. We've also added in an observation section. This section is new and again will autofill from your practice software. And we've added in a protective factors section. This section is because we want you to discuss what is going well in your patient's life, what supports they have, what are their strengths, what are they doing well. It's really to encourage a conversation about positive things in their lives. And a final note to add on this slide, we want to remind GPs that if it is possible that your patient will see this information, to please be very conscious of what you're writing. If you observe your patient is looking disheveled, unwell, if their weight is recorded, or anything negative about their appearance, please just remembering that this could be triggering for them to read, and having those conversations about what you've written and why might be helpful.
So again, a couple of little changes which we hope will be helpful for you. In the eating disorder behaviour section, there's a little bit more options to put in about behaviours and frequencies. And again, this was some feedback from our allied health team, psychologists and dietitians who we work with, who are really keen to hear what our patients bring to us and to collaborate with us with the information. So they said that it would be helpful for them to know what patients have told us, and then also we can use that later on in the review sections to keep a track of what's happening. And again, with the initial treatment recommendations, just a little bit of a guideline towards what's actually the outlines in the MBS guidelines, what are the psychological treatments which are going to be determined together with the people that you're referring to, and a reminder for the dietitian to write back to the GPs on completion of treatment, and then just space for the other allied health team members who may be involved, remembering that sadly the Medicare rebates don't cover everybody, but there may be an exercise physiologist or a physiotherapist or a yoga therapist or somebody else who's really important part of the team, so a little bit of space there to add them in.
All right. Up next, we have the changes to the GP management section. So a few points here. We've added frequency of review, so you can tick weekly, monthly, or as indicated. That's so the allied health team knows how often the GP is seeing the patient. We've added in actions for patient to take. This is to assist the GP in making suggestions to the patient of things that they could review or research that might be helpful. We've added other actions identified by patient. So that was added so that the GP can start a discussion with the patient about what the patient thinks that they could help do to help themselves. So really encouraging that conversation again. We've added patient education given, yes or no, and an option to include some more information there. This was added to encourage GPs to provide resources to their patients, whether it be web pages, books, things that the patient can go away and look at after that might be helpful in their journey. And finally, we've added copy of eating disorder plan offered to patient and a yes or no tick box. Karen earlier mentioned that this whole plan was passed by a lived experience team. And that team suggested that seeing the eating disorder plan could be really triggering to some patients. So what we suggest offering, do you want a copy of this plan or can I send it to your referred specialists? If the patient says yes, they want a copy, just taking the time to explain the wording that has been used throughout the template, doing that to just minimize any harm if they were to read any wording that could be triggering to them.
And lastly, this one's a little bit exciting. Of course, we always record that we've discussed consent to communicate between ourselves and our referred practitioners, but as you know, there are new Medicare item numbers for case conferencing, not just for GPs, but also for psychologists, dietitians, pediatricians, and psychiatrists that can be used a few times during the course of the Medicare eating disorder plan lifetime. And so we've popped a little note in there that can prompt you to have that discussion with your patient. But please remember that consent needs to be expressly sought by you and every practitioner involved each time a case conference is held in order to access the rebates for the patient. And lastly, we've got a really active eating disorder community with some fantastic organizations, and we all collaborate really well. InsideOut, we've already spoken about, and here's a link to treatment services. There's also fact sheets and some other new resources coming soon. So please familiarize yourself with the InsideOut website. Connected, which is an ANZ, Australian New Zealand Academy of Eating Disorders, also has a treatment provider website with geographical access to different practitioners, and of course the Butterfly organization, which I'm hopeful that you all know about, has a wealth of information for patients and families, and also a treatment database to help you find credentialed and experienced practitioners to collaborate with. Thank you very much.
Awesome. So that is the end of our webinar. I'd just like to thank everyone for watching today. Hopefully you've gotten some interesting and helpful information. Thank you, Karen, obviously, for being part of the webinar. We really appreciate all of the work that you do in the eating disorder space. All of our information is up on the screen. If you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to either the GPMHSC or InsideOut, and best of luck with doing your eating disorder plans in the future.
Thanks, everybody.